Okay. Thank you, Dr. Pieper. Although I feel almost too old to be speaking. Maybe I should sit down. Well, I am here to introduce my sister bio babe, Mrs. Lucia Trammell, who has been my friend and colleague for these many years. We decided to skip the usual introduction that involves a recitation of schools attended and awards given and other accomplishments, because we know you'd be oh so interested in that. And there's not going to be a test. We opted instead to share with you what we really know about each other. And I'm more than a little bit scared about what you might hear about me, but moving on. Mrs. Trammell and I have worked side by side for what seems almost like forever. In fact, some of you students and some of the faculty maintain that we are attached at the hip, or ilium, as Mrs. Trammell would say, with an I. It's been so many years, I can't remember a work day that wasn't brightened by her cheerful greeting, caring attitude, and if I was lucky, food offering. Food, of course, relates to that other ilium, the one with the E. 38 years ago, I would not have predicted that we would be blessed to grow old together, sharing joys and heartaches, triumphs and tragedies, puns, opinions. Of course, most of you know we're usually very loath to express our opinions. Food, humor, love of teaching, intellectual curiosity. These are the foundations of our relationship. Over the years, these threads have become a part of the fabric of who we are. Slightly overweight, funny, and soon to be retired teachers who love learning and love you, our students. So allow me to introduce truly one of the kindest, most thoughtful, and selfless people I know, Mrs. Lucia Trammell.
When Dr. Becker and I decided that we needed to introduce each other because no one knew each other better than we did in the workplace, I was thinking about all of the stories, and after 38 years, there are a lot. And I couldn't come to one that I thought would illustrate why I love Dr. Becker. And I was thinking that this is good. I'm not supposed to be too long. My husband says, well, you tell them that you'll always be short, just you may not be brief. So I thought back to one of the very first experiences that I had walking into the classroom. In fact, it was the first time I had to walk into the biology lab and teach the lab by myself. Now, I had done teaching, but not at the College of Pharmacy, so there's a whole level of expectation that I sensed, and I knew that it was there because of the professionalism that Dr. Becker imbued. I came into her office, and I was asking her some detailed questions about how the lab should be going, and questions that I had as I was staying up the night before thinking about what I was going to do and when I was going to do it and how I was going to do it. And she answered patiently all my questions. And then she said, "You seem nervous." And I said, yeah. and she said, with humor, "Now, Lucia, you know you will always know more than the students." And I laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. And then, in more serious tones, she said, "Do you think I would have hired you if I didn't think you were capable? If I didn't think that you could handle this job? Did you think that for a minute I wouldn't have asked you, I would have asked you not to come or come and expect that you would be perfectly up to the job?" In that statement, I realized a bunch of things. Number one, that I had the skills. Number two, I was fortunate enough to be working with someone who very quickly could pick up on feelings and immediately put herself in that situation and identify with those feelings. And finally, someone who had the knack, and this you all know, of, in a nutshell, saying something that would be completely comforting. And so for that memory, and for all the ones that followed 38 years, I thank Dr. Becker.
So, as Dr. Pieper told you in more than one way, Mrs. Tranel and I have been around for a very long time. A very long time. To appreciate just how long, we want to tell you a little bit about what the world was like in the 1970s when we first began to teach together at the St. Louis College of Pharmacy. For example, the only meaning for the word text was a book.
And a hashtag actually meant pound.
In those years, Craig didn't even have a list.
The definition for a tablet was either a pill or a pad of paper.
A hookup was an interaction between your vehicle and your trailer.
And birds were the only thing that tweeted.
Head bumping and body rocking were medical conditions, not something you did while listening to music on the radio.
Airplane mode simply referred to traveling by plane, not when someone cuts himself off from the world by not logging onto Facebook or checking his cell phone.
Bluetooth was a reason to see a dentist.
And CC still meant carbon copy in a letter, but back then we really used carbon paper so that when you wrote on it, it left an impression underneath. And there was just no way to blind copy anybody.
There was no equivalent of an emoji or an emoticon, and I gotta tell you that at our age, this has left us very emoticon-confused, which is apparently a real word.
Over the years, our culture has changed, our students have changed, and we have changed as teachers. In fact, we have you students to thank for all the things that you taught us. For example, if you give them chocolate, they will come. No matter how hard you try, there is just no way to make dissection material smell good.
And we know that most of you tended to stay up late cramming for exams, and sometimes as a result came to class in your pajamas. But we learned not to take that personally because we know it bought you 8 extra minutes of sleep.
We learned that the creation of an anatomically correct snow sculpture while studying for an anatomy exam can establish a tradition.
Well, you need a snow. We learned that rather than making excuses for our mistakes in class, it was better to apologize and move on.
And being an authority is more important than being an authoritarian.
We also learned from our students, never do today what you can put off until tomorrow, unless it involves social media.
And finally, we learn from you. If you have easy expectations, students may like you. But if you are fair Even if you have rigorous expectations, students will love you. Even though the world is constantly evolving, some important adaptations endure. We'd like to share with you our biological wisdom, if you will, about the adaptations that will guarantee success in any environment. Me first.
Because you're younger.
We each had to have our own time, you understand. So I'm thinking about the welcome that I want to extend to everybody that's here, added to the welcomes you've already heard. And it occurred to me how you, the graduates, are connected with everyone in this room. It's not all the same. Obviously, your family is here for those graduates. Your teachers are here because you are the graduates. Members of the choir came to perform for you, the graduates. Members of the Board of Trustees, the President's staff, all of the support staff that have made this happen are here because of you, the graduates. Even the husbands of the commencement speakers are here because of the graduates. That is a pretty powerful thing to consider. I know that you're thinking about this is the end, and that may be making you happy, maybe a little sad, kind of like Dr. Becker and me. You're thinking, well, no more late night studying, and no more early morning classes, no more exams, no more papers, all of that. But that all represents termination. And if you look on the cover of your program, it very clearly says commencement. So commencement is about beginnings, new beginnings. And it's obvious you're going to be going to new jobs, maybe to internships, maybe new relationships, new locations. But I would like you to entertain a different type of commencement. I would like you to commence a philanthropic life. Right now, the members of the Alumni Association are like, you go, girl. But I'm going to talk a little bit different kind of philanthropy. Listen, I want you to think. Right now, at this moment, you are more educated than you have ever been in your whole life. I know I am biased when it comes to education and teaching, but I want you to think of your education like a powerful commodity. And with that comes responsibility. To illustrate, I picked out 3 of my favorite quotes about education and the power that it brings. The first one is from Nelson Mandela, who we know spent his whole life fighting against injustice and against the apartheid. He said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." The second quote is from an author and a journalist, Sidney Harris, who said, "The whole purpose of education is to change mirrors into windows." I love that.